Welcome to Media Appreciation, once again, for Chapter 2, Books and the Power of Print. I hope you've watched the TED Talk with Lisa Boo, How Books Can Open Your Mind. I have it posted in the course content of Module 2. So usually when we think of crowds of screaming fans, we think of pop music stars or heartthrob film actors. But what about book authors? As it turns out that even in our digital age, young adult authors of fiction have a very large fan base. Believe it or not, but in the media convergence of the modern landscape, it may even boost the pop cultural appeal of books and their authors. For the trade show, Book Expo America, the largest book trade show in the U.S., they have introduced BookCon, where storytelling and pop culture collide. Many young adult books have become the basis of films in recent years, such as Harry Potter, Divergent, The Hunger Games, and Twilight, to name a few. Young adult means teen protagonist. The Huffington Post commented that young people are often criticized for their short attention spans and general fickle-mindedness. Like all mass media, the book publishing business is undergoing major digital changes, but its ability to attract and obsess young audiences is a reminder that books can be as powerful as ever. Books were the only form of mass media for hundreds of years. Books have fueled major developments throughout history, from revolutions to the rise of democracies to new forms of art and the spread of new religions. With the emergence of new types of mass media, critics have said that in the future that the book industry would cease to exist. But so far that's not happening. In fact, more titles of books are introduced each year. In 1950, U.S. book publishers introduced 11,000 new titles, and in 2014 they introduced more than 200,000. Seems like the oldest form of mass media is not going anywhere. So a few important things. Mass media started with the printing press and a literate public who had money to spend. Mass media messages come from a sender. The message is encoded through one or more channels to a receiver who decodes and provides feedback. Noise is anything that gets in the way of the message transmission. Can be environmental, cultural, or technical. Couple reminders: Sunday, February 9th, paper 1 is due. Submit on Blackboard assignment. All pages on one upload by 11:59 p.m. Thursday, February 20th, test 1 online, chapters 1, 2, and 3. Must start the test by 11 p.m. I will open the test at 8 a.m. and it will close at midnight. So please don't wait till the last minute to take it. In the event that something would happen to your internet, to a computer, anything could happen. So please take it as soon as you're ready on Thursday. So before newspaper, radio, film, television, and internet, there was the book. Books have fueled revolutions, the rise of democracies, new forms of art, and religions. Let's talk about early books, types of books, and the economics of books. What books are influencing our democracy today? That's what I would like you to think about. What books are influencing our democracy? And can you name some? Maybe search up on the internet book titles of the recent years and how you think they're influencing our democracy. So, printing, from papyrus to paperback. The ancient Egyptians, Greeks, Chinese, and Romans all produced innovations that led up to what resemble a book. It all began about 5,000 years ago with the Egyptians' hieroglyphics, pictorial symbols written on rocks, wood, or clay tablets. It wasn't until about 2400 BC that the Egyptians created papyrus and began writing on it. Papyrus were scrolls made from plant seeds or pulp. The Greeks and Romans adopted the papyrus between 1650 and 300 BC. In Europe, parchment was soon to replace papyrus because parchment is treated animal skin, is smoother, stronger, and more durable, not to mention less expensive. In around 105 CE or AD, the Chinese began making paper from cotton and linen. The first book was most likely produced by the Romans on something called kodaks. So what is kodaks? Kodaks were sheets of parchment sewn together along the edge and then bound and covered. People liked this because they could write on both sides of the paper and you could open the book to any page. Sounds like a modern day book. Then we moved into the age of block printing, movable type, and the printing press. The Chinese developed block printing, whereby printers applied the sheets of paper to large blocks of wood where they had hand carved an entire page of characters and illustrations. The oldest dated block printing book is the Diamond Sutra, which are Buddhist scriptures. Chinese and Koreans developed some metal type, which was movable. The revolutionary printing press was developed in Germany by Johannes Gutenberg between 1453 and 56. He used the movable type and an adaptation of a wine press to develop his invention. They produced the first modern book, which was the Bible. They produced about 200 copies, and about 21 complete copies still exist today. That Bible was printed on vellum, which was a calfskin-based parchment. Books then were very heavy and very expensive. So changes like smaller pages and less expensive paper helped to sell more books, sell for less money, and make them cheaper to produce. This sparked a major change in the way people learned. People gained access to new viewpoints and access to more knowledge. This would ultimately encourage the rise of democratic societies. Take a look at this timeline. Manuscripts, meaning that books would now have codified rules about the written language, including rules of punctuation, lowercase and capital letters, leaving space between words for easier reading, etc. Some manuscripts were illustrated and colorful with dropped letters at the beginning of each chapter of the book. In the 1630s, print shops became a huge success in Europe and England, thus spreading this knowledge to the American colonies. Benjamin Franklin was one printer who grew very wealthy as a result. There was a high demand for books that by the 1800s, printers were forced to make cheaper books for mass consumption. They did this by using machine-made paper and paper covers rather than leather-bound ones, thus introducing the paperback book. They were also referred to as dime novels because they cost either 5 or 10 cents. You've heard of the movie called Pulp Fiction? Well, the term came from the cheap machine-made pulp paper that was used. In the 1880s, that brought about the linotype machines, which used a typewriter-style keyboard to set the type. This is a page from your textbook with a timeline that you should take a look at in your spare time. So what were the effects of the Gutenberg Revolution? So I have a video that I've posted in your course content under Module 2. Take a look at that. It'll show you all about people in the Middle Ages and how they were basically, most of them, illiterate. They could not read or write. So they were at the mercy of the ruling class and the church. The effects of the Gutenberg Revolution standardized and popularized vernacular languages, spawned the growth of nationalism, made information more accessible, literacy increased, new schools of thought came about, like Luther's Protestantism. So you've probably heard about the Protestant Reformation, and that was a series of events that happened in the 16th century in the Christian church. Because of the corruption in the Catholic Church, some people saw a need to change the way it worked. Martin Luther was the first person to translate the Bible into German. He could print copies because Johannes Gutenberg had invented a way to print copies at a relatively low price. The Protestant Reformation triggered the Catholic Counter-Reformation. In general, Martin Luther's posting of the 95 Theses at Wittenberg is seen as the start of the Protestant Reformation. This happened in the year 1517. Luther's ideas were brought to Scotland and founded the Presbyterian Church. So, the consequences of this: millions of peasants rebelled against the nobles in the name of equality and humanity in front of God. Many Bibles were produced in the languages that the people spoke in those countries, so that originally the Bible was only published in Latin, and few people could understand or read Latin. So this made it easier for more people to gain literacy and get their hands on books. So this increased the growth of accumulated knowledge, encouraged exploration, both geographic and intellectual, and led to the development of concept of news. So think about, what is news? Do you listen to or watch news? Do you want to know what's going on in the world? How do you find your news? Let's talk about movies and TV shows inspired by publishing and book retail stores. Which movies can you think of that are based on books? There are so many. Just do a little research on your own and you will find out. Even movies you didn't think were based on books were based on novels originally. Are there any TV shows that are based on books that come to mind? So many as well. So the history of publishing houses. As the demand for books skyrocketed, the publishing industry morphed to satisfy it. Companies in this industry are called publishing houses. These houses are structured in similar ways in order to carry out the processes of attracting authors, developing manuscripts, and ultimately marketing published books. In the early 1800s, prestigious publishing houses formed. These were companies that produced the works of respected writers like F. Scott Fitzgerald and The Great Gatsby. Also, Ernest Hemingway with The Sun Also Rises were published by a publishing house called Scribner's. The oldest American publishing houses included J.B. Lippincott, Harper and Brothers, now HarperCollins, Houghton Mifflin, Little Brown, G.B. Putnam, Scribner's, E.B. Dutton, Rand McNally, who published so many of those atlases and maps, and Macmillan, also popular for textbooks that you might have seen published by Macmillan. Think of scholastic books. Maybe you have a few of those at home from your childhood. Now that more people were moving to the cities and had a desire to read and learn, the entrepreneurs in the book business were eager to cash in on the new demand for knowledge. The publishing industry sputtered a bit with the two world wars and the Great Depression from the 1910s to the 1940s, but the industry bounced back in the 1950s and 60s. So you see the word synergy at the bottom of the page here. You've probably heard this word before. Synergy, the promotion and sale of different versions of a media product across various subsidiaries of a conglomerate. Between books and other media types, major corporations and international media conglomerates began acquiring smaller houses to expand their markets. So here are some top trade publishers: Simon & Schuster, Macmillan, HarperCollins, Penguin Random House. You've probably heard of a lot of these. So in today's world, not unlike most other businesses, book publishing is dominated by a handful of giant corporations, and the top 5 book publishers in terms of revenue: Pearson, RELX Group, Thomson Reuters, Wolters Kluwer, Penguin Random House. Okay, also very popular or large successful companies: Hachette, HarperCollins, Macmillan, Penguin, Bertelsmann, Simon & Schuster. In large corporations, they have a lot of benefits because they have huge budgets for marketing and resources like paper, printing, and binding services, and of course can charge less or sell at a discount. Unfortunately, the smaller independent houses are not able to compete sometimes. And we will continue in our second half.